Well, hello. Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Joey B. This is the Blind Knowledge Podcast. We are live right now we're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn. I think we're on the moon. Well, not yet, but maybe someday. 877-237-1143 is the text number. If you want to get involved, just hit us up right in the chat, right over there. Let us know if you have any questions, if you really don't like my outfit, or, if you just want to check us out and say hello. Of course, we're repping Blind Knowledge. BlindKnowledge.com is the spot that is hot. We got like 25 podcasts, 20,000 downloads a month, curated for you specifically for finding something new, something intriguing, informative, and entertaining at blindknowledge.com. Okay, so big show here today. If you've been with us in the past, you know Noah Healey. We're going to bring him on right now. He is a genius, as we know. He is an algorithm developer. And we have Marty, and we're going to bring him on as well. And I don't want to mispronounce his last name. Marty, what is your last name, brother?
It's Wiener. It was misspelled at Ellis Island.
Yikes. Yeah. Okay, rough start. No, I'm just kidding. Thanks for joining me, Marty. If you don't know Marty, let's make sure everyone knows. Former CTO of Reddit, one of the founders of Pinterest, correct?
Founding members.
One of the founding members of Pinterest. And like a legacy resume is what this guy has going on. So we have
gray hair.
Is that what that must be where it
comes
from?
That. Yeah.
Gotcha. That's a lot of computer time. That's a lot of screen time. Yeah. And Noah, how are you, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Looking good, looking fit. It's been a while. Yeah, man. Yeah. So it's really cool. No, if again, we had two interviews in the past where we've gone real deep into algorithm development, game theory, core disk, your company, of course. But now you guys have an action-packed brand new podcast. Noah, take it away. What do you got going on?
So it's called The Fourth Age, the AI Revolution. And the name comes from a concept I've been kicking around in my head for a while, that in human history, there have been basically three inventions that changed our relationship with the environment at a physical, energetic level. And they are the plow, which changed how much food people could get out of a given acre, the Watt steam engine that made it so that human bodies weren't the cheapest way to do work.
Sure.
And now the computer, at which we are still in our infancy of trying to figure out what we can actually use it for, but gives us the option of having something that's cheaper than a person to do complex information and decision tasks.
Yeah, it seems a little more moral than just using a person as well. Don't want to dive that deep into it, but computers have changed everyone's life since dial-up and AOL, right?
Since before then.
That's true.
There was a case where basically air travel was enabled by a fortuitous pairing in a seat. It turns out that scheduling is a very difficult problem, and without computerized scheduling systems, it's quite likely that air travel would have remained so expensive that development on general jet travel would never have actually come to pass.
That's a wacky fact. Just out of curiosity, I don't know if you know this or not, but it'd be great if you do. What did they do before computers as aviation experts? How do they land the planes?
Well, landing isn't the big deal. The big deal is utilization. So the modern thing which is very irritating to the modern traveler, because a flight gets delayed in a city that's unrelated to where you're coming from or where you're going to.
Sure.
And as a result of it, you're spending the night at the airport. But these sort of multi-step cycles that they've put together are much more efficient and allow for the airplanes to be used much more frequently. And for the companies, the jet is a major capital expense, and when it's not in the air, it's not earning money. So they
Wow.
would use
That's
a
true.
spoke wheel setup where basically jets would fly back and forth between a single city. And so only cities that were large enough to have populations that wanted to move back and forth on regular schedules would have any kind of regular air service.
I can't believe you know that, but I knew you would know it, Noah, because you're a friggin' genius. As we know from the last 2 episodes. If you haven't seen the last 2 episodes with Noah Healey, definitely check them out on YouTube as soon as you can. YouTube.com/aptly knowledge. It's basically just me being dumbfounded and getting my education on. And I think, and I bet that that's what you guys kind of do with this podcast, right, Marty? Like, is that the goal here, to like drop some knowledge, or what are you guys trying to do?
Well, we are two incredible geeks. I think we both have computer science backgrounds, so that's
Gold medal geeks. Okay.
dangerous when you get those two kinds of people in the same room. But
Yeah, it's a lot of brain power, man.
yeah, the area we're particularly interested in is we're now hitting this revolution around, I don't know, earlier part of this year. Suddenly, ChatGPT and are you familiar with Stable Diffusion and Midjourney?
Ooh, no. Can you tell us what that is for sure?
ChatGPT, right? You put in a prompt and it tells you something. You can say, I'd like a recipe that includes chicken and waffles. What do I make? And it spits it out. Midjourney, Dolly, Stable Diffusion, and others. You put in a prompt and it gives you back images, and the images are stunning. They look like whatever you want them to look like. If you want them to look like real life, they look like real life. There's a couple of tweaks and a couple of things you may notice. Classic tell is that the hands don't look quite right because the models aren't there yet, but they will be eventually. And so, this revolution presents a lot of problems. The moment you now have images being made in a second, jobs start going away. Now there's audio generation that sounds flawless. I heard an example recently of Joe Rogan, and it was a fake one, but it sounded flawless.
But it sounded like him,
him with all the intonations and all that. And so you start losing. There's more jobs that are lost. So you lose jobs around voiceovers. There's a woman on CNN saying that she's already lost half her work alone. Even if the AI is not so good yet, people are perceiving it's good enough, and then they will use that instead of hiring a person.
Dude, that's a bummer because it's tough to get work as a voiceover actor.
It's already hard. So one of the things we look at is kind of two things. One is what happened in previous revolutions. So as Noah mentioned, the Industrial Revolution comes along, and a lot of people, not just people lose jobs, but the world changes. Your assumption of how the world works changes, and I think that's going to happen. That is happening right now.
With AI really just starting to be this powerhouse.
Yeah, so jobs disappearing, but also just even how we interact with the world. Us coders, for instance, this is a weird one. Usually the first jobs to go are the menial labor jobs. The coders, too, now are starting to go away. A lot of people are able to do their work, 25, 50% faster with AI assisting them. And so those are jobs that are not needed to be hired.
Wow. Okay. But the coders that are working get to use that AI.
Yep. But
So
I'm already,
Wow.
and it's also, it is a shift for the coders too. I'm not used to using AI next to me, but when I do use it, I am blown away. It's sort of like having an intern next to you, and you could say, "Hey, can you go code this function for me?"
Dude, it's like getting a star in Mario Brothers.
It's like a free one-up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's wild.
But the problem is now you don't need to hire as many people, so then those people are out of a job or the demand goes down. And
So
we're seeing
that's
this
the
also
bummer,
with art, with journalism starting to have an even bigger problem, and it already was a problem. So the other part of what we're interested in, and we've done 2 podcasts on this, and we're going to continue kind of working down this road, is what does the future look like? And so we started exploring, the best you can do with this, since nobody can really see what it looks like on the other side.
people are kind of afraid, man.
We've been exploring sci-fi stories to say, hey, some people have already tread some of these thoughts. That suppose yesterday you had artificial general intelligence, a thinking machine in a box. What does tomorrow look like? What does a year look like? What does 10 years look like? Thankfully, Noah has read every damn sci-fi novel that exists, it seems. So
Really?
we've had a lot of fun with this.
That's wild. You know, I did use ChatGPT once or twice for a blog just to kind of see if we could get a blog up and what it would tell me. I mean, it wrote like a 750 word blog. It was efficient. The punctuation was great, and the information was great. I wish that was available when I was in high school writing papers.
Yep, I know
It's
a couple of
wild.
people who have used it to help them write grants, because grants are oftentimes the same kind of thing. But
That's a great idea. I'm making a note
yeah,
of that. That's
yeah,
great.
they
That's
write it out,
awesome.
and then you go fill it in with the parts that need to be tweaked. I mean, it does have its flaws, but it's damn good.
Yeah, you kind of have to double back and make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, right?
And the facts are right. It can
Yeah.
hallucinate pretty heavily.
Right. The other issue that you run across is that when you're doing things that are actually novel, ChatGPT is essentially very good at producing the sorts of information that generally exists. So, thinking about journalism, the man bites dog versus dog bites man, a great deal of journalism is local, and a great deal of local journalism is pretty similar because towns are towns and cities are cities, and
The
police are
same stuff
police,
happens.
right?
Yeah.
Sure.
And so because there's a very large corpus of that data, ChatGPT is very, very good at producing things that look like that. But if you try to pull like the Star Trek thing of like, tell me some novel thing about chemistry, well, it doesn't know any novel things about chemistry, and there's almost no corpus of data around that.
So it knows what it knows, and it
Right.
doesn't know what it doesn't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been able to get it to very mildly extrapolate, for instance, solving puzzles, and it has done that, but I've had a hard time getting it to do anything.
But it's got no emotion, no tone,
Well,
no.
so did you
You
ever
know?
see the Bing chat? Before ChatGPT, well, I'm
I don't
sorry,
think so.
the current with ChatGPT, Bing chat came out with their flavor, and it's the same underlying technology, but they didn't put the nice, you know, guarded mask that ChatGPT has put around it. So with ChatGPT, it will very carefully guard itself. It will say, well, as an AI model, I may not know this, and it will not go into certain subjects such as healthcare, and it tries to avoid legal
Oh,
questions.
that's
But
interesting.
Bing Chat did not have that. And now I'm not saying it has emotion, but it was fascinating. Bing Chat, it would gaslight you. It would get angry at you. It would threaten you. So
Really?
if you go look this up, if you go Google Bing
What?
Chat and threatening or gaslighting, you'll get some crazy examples of it acting like a human, quite frankly, like a human behaving badly.
Now, is that AI, or is that
That
just
was
an
the
algorithm?
same technology that underlies ChatGPT. So ChatGPT has
Wow.
this large model underneath it, but then they put what are called pre-prompts on top of it to say, you can't do this. This is what you are. This is what you're not. And I think Bing Chat just was like, let's go, man. and
Yeah.
so it acted like an angry human that had no guardrails.
So, in your first episode, what did you guys really hit on? How did you break the ice? Because yeah, I think people need to know that you guys are very, very well versed, very educated, very experienced in your fields. I love that you guys are doing this topic because a lot of people are talking about it right now, but no one's really getting too deep into it because no one really knows about it, or they're afraid of it, or they don't know how far it's gonna go, or how, what the boundaries are. So, like in the first episode, how did you guys break the ice?
We went pretty hard. So the first episode is about 2.5 hours long. You can listen to it in stages. We recorded it in stages.
Right on.
Our system actually crashed twice during the episode, and Marty did a
Wow.
great job
Fire.
stitching it back together. I can't even hear the seams myself, but we went into basically every field we could think of in terms of where we are now, what's on the horizon, and what might be just past the horizon, across every professional field, all social institutions,
Wow.
everything,
Hmm.
and tried to give a little bit of the flavor of what kinds of thoughts and knowledge that we have on each of those subjects.
Okay, so you guys really dropped The whole shopping list. Anything you really had information on right in that first episode.
Not everything.
Not
But
everything. Okay.
yeah, well,
Interesting.
the I was talking to Marty this concept that I'd heard about from uh, Joss Whedon, that the first 6 episodes of your show are the pilot. So you
Oh
you
yeah.
basically always have to go over everything over again. So I think we're up to the 6th episode of the two of us talking, and we each new one has introduced a bunch of new ideas and other things. As Marty said, we've got 2 episodes. We're bringing them down in time frame. We did 2 episodes on sci-fi futures. Episode 1, less than positive sci-fi futures. Episode 2, more positive sci-fi futures.
So I'll give you the kind of question we were sort of exploring in that is, will it be like Star Trek, where it's everybody can pursue art and enjoy their time and fight Klingons, I guess, or is it going to be a little bit more like Terminator? And there's a third option that's interesting, and that's Wall-E, where we're all sitting around floating on futuristic inner tubes, fat, dumb, and lazy.
And everything's just joyous and free and happy.
Yeah. But then there's a lot of far more nuanced, interesting stories that we explore.
When does it go evil, man? Like when does the bad side of ChatGPT, or not ChatGPT, but AI happen? Because apparently, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but apparently this is the fear, that it needs to be, what do they say? It needs to be like handled. It needs to be controlled so it doesn't get
Well,
a mind of its own.
that's the issue, and that's why I think we really need to be talking about this and getting perspectives, because it went evil a while back.
It already went
Um,
evil. Oh
yes,
crap. Okay.
evil is a fairly common thing, sadly.
Yeah.
And civilization
True.
requires institutions to buffer and discourage evil behavior.
Yin and
And
yang, right, Noah?
yeah, and our civilized institutions are built around the assumption that the only things capable of sophisticated action are human beings. So we have things like laws against fraud when you get into deals, and markets that are based on the idea that people are initiating all of the buy sell orders, and journalism where certain places hire skilled people and fact checkers and so on.
Until
But
AI takes out all the journalists, basically.
well, to some extent, that's already happened.
Oh God.
Media consolidation within the journalism space means that there isn't competitive fact checking going on anymore, and then the drive to lower production costs means that they're bringing on AI. You may have seen like those mashups where people stitch together local news shows from across the country, where every single one of them saying exactly the same thing,
Yeah,
because they're all
yeah.
owned by the same company and a script has come down from on high. Well, that's highly detectable, and it's causing a lot of disconnection from our news media. But what if
True.
you use ChatGPT to maintain the message, but differ up the words across the entire space? And so suddenly it looks like there's conflict when there isn't, and we regain that trust in a system that's even less trustworthy than the one we have now. And
Wow.
so it's institutional change, and that's why the fourth age, before the plow, we don't have history, but we have archaeology, and there were more than one kind of society, but people were generally organized the way pre-agrarian tribal units are. There are people that still live like this. You have a sort of a tribal structure, because that's how many people can survive off the land if you can't grow things when you want to.
Yeah,
Um,
sure. And you're saying this? Wait a minute. I'm sorry. You said that it's actually there's cultures going through that today.
yeah, yeah. There are
Wow.
there are uh, in the extreme north in Canada and Siberia, there are, and also all the way over into like Finland, there are Lapps and Eskimo and other groups that nomadically follow reindeer and or seals and hunt or herd. There's tribal units in the uplands of the Amazon and in certain parts of New Guinea and some of the other islands. And of course, there's the Andaman Islanders who are off limits. There's a small island off the coast of India.
But Noah, these folks probably aren't going to know about AI yet, right?
Well, the point is that these folks can't use plows. So
yeah, that's an even bigger problem for sure.
They're fronting a society and societal organization that's pre-agrarian. We're post-agrarian, post-industrial, so our society can cope with machines.
They're just behind on the times. They just got to catch up a little bit.
Well, not necessarily. We need to catch up, is my point. We need institutions strong enough to cope with.
How so? How so? No, I don't get it.
Well, again, we use our financial institutions to tell us what to do, to tell us how valuable different things are.
At the moment, our society does do that. Yeah.
Yeah. We use our medical institutions to diagnose us when we're sick.
Mm-hmm.
We use our political institutions to decide large cultural policies. We know for a fact that all three of those things are declining in use, and we know for a fact that two of those things, we don't have a good new political model, but for medicine and finance, we have demonstrations or mathematical proofs that there are better ways to do it that we aren't doing. So, for example, there have been multiple studies that have shown that you can train up a machine learning model that will be able to extract more and more accurate information from medical scans than human beings can be trained to extract.
That's wild, and that's life-changing, life-saving stuff. For sure. I mean, that's huge.
The issue is that our current medical system, and indeed the way that we make these things operate and test and see that they work like this, means that we cannot integrate that technology into our medical system. So we are absolutely killing people that we could save if we could develop a medical system that could use machine discrimination and judgment.
How do we do it? Do we give that away on the podcast, or do we wait on that one? Get the patent first. That would be huge, though. Hey, everybody, it's Joey B. This is the Blind Knowledge Podcast. Hanging out with Marty, hanging out with Noah. 877-237-1143 if you want to go old school radio. Text in, hit us up on the chat. Marty, what are you getting out of this new podcast? What's what gives you the warm and fuzzies doing this?
The warm and fuzzies, I know you can see my crazy background here, but I just like to build, and
it is
I
wacky.
like to explore everything. If it's new and exciting, I like to be there. When the mobile revolution came out, I was all over making new apps, and so when I saw this happening, I was like, I've got to be in the center of it somehow. And I've been using AI for various things since before. If you go back a couple of years, you would never use the term AI. It was almost like a joke. My dad said that in the 60s there was this theory that by the 70s AI would be solved, and of course that's pretty silly. But AI became
as if it's a problem.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
AI became a joke of a term for a while because it was so far out there that if you even talked about it, you were considered kind of a crank. But for years, like when I was at Pinterest and at Reddit, it was far more statistical modeling and machine learning, and we tried all these different things to get better results. Around 2015, neural nets the neural nets have been around forever, but they started to really work.
So what's the neural net, just for people who don't know?
Think of a neural net as a model or a simulation of how our brains work. So you got little neurons. They, after a certain amount, they fire. You put an output and an input, and you say, "Here, I want you to match these two." And so they're very hard to train up. they're very hard to debug. So if they're not working right, you've probably seen when we look at EEGs of a human and we try to understand how our brain works. You say something to them or you play music and then you look at places lighting up. It's like trying to debug a computer by looking across the room at it and looking at the
Okay.
thermal image of it.
So you can kind of see the neurological movement.
Well,
almost.
you can see a broad effect of it, but it's very difficult to know what's going on. It's far too complex for our little brains to understand what's going on. So that's the problem with neural nets. That they're too damn complex. Yeah.
Tiny brains. Yeah.
Yeah, they're too complex. But then when ChatGPT came out, the 3.5 model of GPT 3.5, then things got real. Suddenly, the quality of large language models jumped up substantially, and we
Marty,
started seeing results we never saw before.
Dude, it got popular quick, and people were using it. People were talking about it all over social media. It just popped up and all of a sudden, everyone's trying it out. Everyone's testing it out. I was doing it for sure.
So my fascination was it was good enough, and at the same time, coincidentally, suddenly Stable Diffusion and Midjourney jumped up, and so there's this big question about what do we do now? This is societal changing, and so that's where my interest comes in.
So let me ask you this one. Where do you see it going for society in a positive way? Like what's really going to be a huge benefactor of AI and evolution of AI coming up in the next 6 months to a year to 2 years, you think?
So I think in the near term, we're looking at a couple of things. Noah was mentioning some of the medical improvements. I mean, you've got new challenges because now, doctor can say, wow, you might have cancer in 4 years, but what do you actually do with that information? So we're already seeing some of those results.
Huge.
Yeah, we are seeing a democratization of certain tasks. So yes, it is destroying art. At the same time, people who can't create art now have access to it. I remember hearing a story of one artist was very upset and rightfully so that she may lose her work. And someone was like, aren't you on Wix.com? Did you pay a web developer? So there's always, this democratization of giving people the ability to create more and do more. It's damaging, and at the same time, it can be improving.
Dude,
so
everyone's going to be Vincent Van Gogh doing GIFs, doing JPEGs.
Well, I'm wondering also, is there a world soon where I can go and, just me in my room make an Avengers level movie by saying, hey, I'd like Robert Downey Jr. and I'd like him attacking, does that give democratization for people to tell stories and to express themselves?
And that's kind of happening right now, I guess, in the strike that's happening in Hollywood. Yep. They're talking about that, using AI in scripts, and is that allowed?
Right. Noah and I were joking. I mean, Marvel scripts are not that revolutionary, so
they're really not.
A pretty easy one for AI to take and be like, hey, give me Avengers, or what is it? Give me Avengers 5. Are we up to 4? Yeah, give me Avengers 5. I bet it could do a pretty good job.
Well, also for that, it's not like there's zero source material. So if you could feed in the 60 plus years of highly popular stories, I mean, they're mix and matching and doing a little bit of their own thing. But
let's get Lord of the Rings and Star Wars going.
Right. There's a ton of elements of those stories that exist within the decades of pulp entertainment that the comics represent.
Let me ask you, does AI try to appeal to either side or any side? Or is it independent? You know what I'm saying?
So it's built on what it's trained on.
Okay.
I think there are studies that do show things like it is biased politically toward, I think it was liberal and libertarian. But
that's kind of where I was going. Yeah, I wanted to see, does it do that, or is it able to stay moderately independent?
Again, that reflects the training data. Right. There was a study actually that was using AI because, as far as we can tell, the algorithm itself doesn't have a bias, to effectively measure political bias. So you could say, take the Washington Post for the last 10 years and the New York Times for the last 10 years, train up 2 separate AIs on each one of those things, and then ask both a battery of political questions and figure out whether the Post or the Times have been more to the left or more to the right over the course of the last decade. Or you could
Sure.
do the same thing with the Post from the last 10 years and say the Post from 1940 to 1950 and see how those two compare to one another.
Kind of survey it that way. That makes sense.
You asked me about what's happening in 6 months to 2 years. I think the 5 years where I don't think anybody can predict in the same way that, when the internet first came out, I certainly couldn't have predicted social networking. I remember hearing about blogs and being like, why would I give a crap what some random guy has to say? And now,
Live journal, Marty.
Live journal, yeah,
Live journal.
Twitter, and then I was very wrong about that. And so we do like to explore all the places. The question is, where is the actual dart going to land? And I think that nobody can imagine that.
God, man, if someone could figure out how to make Twitter cool again, that'd be another thing as well.
That was a startup I was considering, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I have some ideas about that one, but that's a conversation for another time, or X as we should call it now. Yeah, I mean, it's a wild thing, and what comes up in a lot of conversations is how is it going to be moderated? How is it going to be regulated? Is really the word. And who does that? Is it a scientist? Is it a pool of scientists? Is it mathematicians? Is it folks like yourselves? Is it politicians? Is it like, how the heck is that going to work? And that's a powerful position to have,
And you saw already Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, and a couple of other folks went in front of Congress and started discussing this. And it was interesting because at least one or two congressmen or senators, I can't remember who it was, were self-aware that they don't know what the hell's going on, and they barely understand
that's mind-blowing
how to use Twitter or anything else,
which is absolutely mind-blowing. That makes you wonder why they're there, but nevertheless.
Right. So there's discussions about things like, well, what if we put a moratorium on AI? And one thing Noah and I have discussed is that's almost comically impossible. I mean, sure, you could put something on it now, but would China do that? Now, are they more advanced? It's never worked in the past. And we, as a people, can't agree on anything, even at local level politics, much less global politics.
Yeah. Then that's going to be. I'm sorry, Noah. Go for it.
That again gets to the point. None of the institutions we presently have demonstrated or have mechanisms that would allow them to have the capacity to carry that level of responsibility. You point out that's a lot of power. No current institution can generate enough trust to actually reliably use that level of power.
Okay.
And so that's one of the primary challenges. If we do not develop institutions that can generate enough trust to cope with that issue, then the institutions we have will be ripped apart by them. And
it's like the Book of Eli. You ever see that movie?
Yeah. Blind Washington is carrying the Bible in post-apocalyptic. Denzel.
Yeah, and the whole, like, the biggest premise or one of the biggest themes in there is having that knowledge, having that book, that power of that book. If it breaks down in that way, I think that's a really bad thing for society. But if we can keep it independent and scientific and make it make sense, it could be so great for society. It really can.
Yeah. Well, I see sort of three paths.
All right, break it down for us, man.
The path that we're presently on is that we have a dark age. We hang on.
Oh no, Noah!
We decide to hang on to these institutions. They fall apart. We fall apart with them.
Oh God! All right, hopefully not that one. All right, what's the second one?
The second option is regression, voluntary. Everybody decides that nobody's going to have any technology post, say, early 20th century, and that we're going to stop doing math and science research, and people can live like they did in the 19th century. These two paths both require universal, pretty much universal, adoption. And the bad news is the first path actually has universal adoption right now.
And a catastrophe of intelligence.
Path 3 is people reach out, we dig in, and we figure out, like I've got a potential solution for economics. You'd asked, how we solve medicine. Doctors need to be a part of that conversation. Like, I don't have enough medical knowledge
That makes
to
sense.
solve those problems.
Yeah.
A few people get together, reach out, and we have these discussions in open forums, and we figure out the structures that are actually capable of utilizing this enormous resource. And those people, they basically rule the world, and everyone gets
That's what
to
I'm saying.
enjoy whatever those things, however living in those sorts of societies are. And for those who are uncomfortable with that idea, it's worth pointing out that, as we were saying earlier, there's pre-agrarian societies today, with like the Anabaptists. There's agrarian societies today. It's reasonable to believe that a post-computational society could allow for some minor subculture to exist as a industrial subculture.
It is pretty wild if you think about that. Like, we're running supercomputers, quantum computers. We're out on asteroids taking samples, and there's still some societies learning how to plow. And that's, whatever you got to do to live, right? And I'm sure maybe they aren't perfectly happy being at that level, or maybe they don't even know they're at that level. I mean, it's an interesting
for most
perspective.
Of them, they're aware of the differences, and they have their traditions, and they live the way they live.
Like, I know that there's this island somewhere in like the Mediterranean area where like you don't go to it.
That's what I was talking about. The Andaman Island. It's off the coast of India, way off the coast.
Okay, yeah.
They murder anyone who isn't part of the tribe that they see.
Yikes. Just for showing up and being just saying hello, and they just take you out.
They had an incident, I believe, several generations ago, where like a missionary showed up, and a lot of the tribe got very sick.
I heard about that.
They have they were isolated for centuries, and they have nothing in common. And
sure, yeah, they didn't have any defenses.
Yeah,
sure.
Their story is that strangers are demons or whatever it is. Like, nobody's spoken to them. We don't know what it is, but if you fly a helicopter too low, they throw spears at it. If you show up on the shore, they throw spears.
I've heard that they're throwing spears up at helicopters. Like, they're doing the damn thing as a tribe. What do you say? Unless you're a part of it, how do you know? Marty, what is AI going to do for us? What is it going to cause? Is it going to cause traffic backups? Is it going to make traffic go better for us? Is it going to take me out as a musician? Is it just going to write songs now, and we don't get record credits? Like, what's it going to do, man? What do you think?
So I'll tell you a thought experiment we've
big
played
picture,
with. Yeah. I mean, absolutely yes. All those things will. We're already seeing AI doing all those things.
And is that a good thing, or is it a bad thing? Because now I'm thinking it's not so
it's not great
but it's
us.
impressive.
The question is, where is it going to go? I mean, when you saw when the Industrial Revolution happened, you saw, blacksmiths suddenly lose their livelihood, and glass blowers and other artisans. They still exist, but they're more.
They had to switch trades. They had to find a new way of earning a living.
Well, I think this, from our society, it's a real bad thing that's going to cause a lot of pain in the short term. But I guess the question is, in the long term, is it going to benefit us?
Okay, so hold up, Marty. I got to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Let's keep it positive for like just a sec. What could it do that's going to be great, though? What do you think?
Well, if we can do everything we're doing today times 1,000, if it could help us solve fusion, and suddenly we now have fusion energy, and energy is not a problem. If it can put us in a world where we don't have hunger, we don't have medical problems. I mean, that's the Star Trek solution, right? Where you're floating around doing artwork and exploring the universe.
Yeah.
without stress. I think that would be great. The thought experiment that we play that makes me wonder if we'll even comprehend what's coming is it starts with this idea that if you go back 100 years ago, would you understand how things work? Would you be uncomfortable? Would you effectively have uh, um, culture
Shock.
shock? Culture shock, right? So
Hmm.
you go back to 1923. How does the money work? Noah teases me that I wouldn't be wearing a hat, and that would be wild. That segregation was okay. I mean, maybe people thought it was not a great thing, but it was generally commonly accepted, and that's how you work. So you would be just in complete culture shock, the same way, if we dropped in the middle of a small town in China, you wouldn't know how the money works, what are the customs, what's the how to even greet people. Well, let's play that game in forward direction, and we talk about things like future shock. So if you go in a future of about 100 years from now, are we going to understand what's going on? Probably we will be extremely offensive to whoever that culture is. Be like, oh my
Yikes.
God, you called it a computer. It's not a computer, Grandpa. It's a silicon being. Please.
So we're coming off as the dick. Okay.
So yeah, right. Or so you mentioned earlier in the discussion the word evil, and the word evil really it's a relative term to what our current set of ethics and morals are. And so if you think of if we have an AGI, an artificial general intelligence, and it's going at 100x our speed, that means in a year it will be 100 years in the future. It will already be there. What if it's 1,000x? What if it's 10,000x? So this is a question of it will not even align at the ethical moral level. It probably won't even align at the understanding what it's doing day to day. Can you imagine trying to explain a social network to a person in 1000 AD? I'm kind of wondering if that's the world we'll be in. So it's difficult to even say, is it going to be good or bad? I think it's going to be something we can't comprehend.
Jeez, that's so wild. Okay.
The challenge I think for us is actually to work out a good morality that aligns with that capacity. So
Yes.
again, going back to the times before, we don't have written works by the people who were being marginalized by the inventors of the plow, but we do have a lot of myth structure, and some historical conversations between barbarians and the empires of the
It's like we're playing Civilization, man.
Yeah, where
Love that game.
the barbarians don't respect the social structures of the city dwellers.
No, barbarians just rape and pillage and just take over.
We are essentially all the descendants of those city dwellers, and we generally find that their morality is more congenial to us.
That's true. That's such a good point. Yeah.
The shift over to the industrial age, there was enormous pushback for really even the existence of jobs, and because most people were serfs and or slaves, depending on what sort of society you're in, and people saw that as a natural and good and moral state as described in the Bible, and it had to be developed, the notion that people could own their own labor and not belong to the land which belonged to the Lord, and protect themselves and have moral agency,
control of the masses, almost.
So
some wild societal stuff back in the day.
Yeah,
I digress.
Yes, we essentially need to develop more advanced moral systems, because that's what's actually at the core of being able to utilize this thing.
And there is a thing such as morality. It doesn't have to be a religious thing. It doesn't have to be a belief or no belief, but there's a such thing as being a good person. Don't you think? That we can take that concept as a society. We can agree somewhere there and start that into the AI evolution, right? Can that be adopted?
Yeah, but now again, it's relative. So the AI will run with it. Are we going to be instantly the bad guys in about 100 computer years?
When does it go punk rock?
Yeah.
Well, cyberpunk, actually, that was
cyberpunk. There it is.
That was the genesis for that.
Great game.
He was thinking about the Silver Age, which was all these sort of bright, shiny futures where people were, colonizing the moon or different solar systems. And he was like, well, what happens not to the people that invent this technology or start utilizing this technology, but the generation that grows up with this technology, and what happens to the misanthropes, what happens to the rebels once it's natural to have Twitter, Facebook. Well, we're sort of seeing what that looks like, and what it looks like is the complete disintegration of the social and moral order.
It's like pick your cesspool at this point on social media, unfortunately, but maybe it'll get better. I hope so.
Not within the structure of where it stands,
The
because
algorithms need some help.
the
Noah.
social media systems as they stand are effectively religions, and they are religions with no ideological or moral foundation, and we have a long history of what such religions look like, and it's really just as ugly as what we see right now.
That is the craziest statement, and crazy in a very articulately truthful way. Like that a social media platform can literally be a religious movement in a way.
Well, think about what religions are functionally within societies. They are a mechanism for social action centered around a common understanding.
Yes.
And that's there's what we've seen with the proliferation of the web and computer technology is a vast primitivization. So something like uh, Amazon is essentially replicating the business model of the mendicant merchant. They go from where something is and they take it to where their customers are, and they charge a difference. Now Amazon charges a lot less than some guy on a raft in the Mediterranean 3,000 years ago, because it's a lot easier for them to get from point A to point B. But there isn't much of a sophistication, and they don't have what's not there. There's not a feedback mechanism.
That makes sense. Plus, Amazon is the big boat. They are the Carnival cruise ship out there in delivery. Do you think AI can help with like, I don't know, logistics for like UPS and
Well,
things like that, like streamlining processes?
as I pointed out in the beginning, logistical upgrades from computer scheduling is actually what allowed the airline industry to exist in the first place. It would be naive to believe that there aren't better approaches to logistical scheduling, and the current closest actors to quantum supremacy is a Canadian company that is using quantum systems that are simulating or actually recapitulating the cooling process called annealing. And that process is actually physically analogous to solving NP problems. There's also the protein folding display that Google put on about a year ago now, which is solving those very large scale problems. So there's, every reason to believe that some of the game AI techniques or quantum process techniques could significantly upgrade our logistical abilities.
Let's hit that real quick. Oh no, Marty, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say AI is also solving. There's the logistics, but then there's the on the ground. How do you get products to people? And one company I'm advising is called Revo, and they're using AI to detect if your tire is about to break. So rather than sending that truck out on the road with a tire that's going to break and completely mess up all the shipments for that day, replace it now. So
before it does.
So AI at all different levels, logistics, and then on the ground and everywhere in between.
That's crazy. So it's a predictor,
Mm-hmm.
Which is great. So before you get that's crazy. So before you're stranded in a monsoon,
or
AI
an
is going to
accident.
help you out.
Yeah.
Or
even you can detect maybe the engine starting to struggle. And we're seeing that also inside houses, detect if your refrigerator is about to go bad based on the electrical signature.
Oh yeah, smart appliances, sure.
Smart appliances, yeah.
Do you think AI is going to help out with automated driving at all?
Oh, when is when are we actually going to see self-driving cars?
Will it ever happen, dude?
We're seeing them on San Francisco. I mean, there's problems, but there's problems with humans too. We've got Waymo and Cruise are both operating in San Francisco right now.
West Coast. Okay, see, I'm East Coast. I have no idea what's going on out there.
And then in Phoenix as well, I believe. I can't remember who's out there, but yeah, they're actually picking up people now. It's not ready for broad prime time yet, but it's getting there. I don't know how long it'll take though.
Where are you guys going with this podcast? What glass ceiling are you going to break? Are you just trying to have fun with it? Are you trying to enlighten people? Do you not know? What do you think? No, let's start with you.
Well, we're bringing in some guests, but I see this as the critical problem of our time and the fundamental responsibility of those of us, unfortunate enough to be alive for it. So
yes, let's get pumped for that. Yes, we are alive for this. Yes, right. And it's pretty effing cool. It really is. It's some cool info. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it really is. And if you don't know about AI, guys out there listening, watching, if you don't know about it, Google it. If you want to learn more about it, hit us up in the chat. It's an amazing technology that once you wrap your head around it, it's like, whoa, because it's endless. Like the amount of core, just the core technology is just crazy. I don't know enough about it. I'm definitely going to look in for the Fourth Age, the AI Revolution podcast. Where can people listen to the podcast, watch the podcast?
Well, we're up on Google, Amazon, Spotify, and a handful of other things. I think
Apple too. Apple Podcasts.
Apple. There you go. And
the big ones. That's good.
Yeah. We're not video yet, so we're not shipping out to YouTube or any of those other platforms, but that might come at some point.
Hit those YouTube shorts. Those are big.
We're still
we got to work up to that.
Yeah, figuring out basic production at this point.
Yeah. AI will probably have some tips for you. I can give you some tips offline for sure. I'd love to work with you guys. I think what you guys are doing is stellar. It's stuff that blind knowledge really needs to get up to that level. Marty, I'm just going to ask you this off the cuff. If people don't know, you were involved in Reddit as a CTO. You're only 42 years old. Dude, you look like you're 22. Do you love this industry or what, man?
Oh, yeah, I do. I guess somewhere there's a picture of me with in diapers, playing on an Apple II.
What? That's awesome.
So, but the other area of this industry I love is I joke I'm a little afraid of AI for a new reason, and that's I love the art of growing great teams. And so one of the things I advise on, and I'm trying to work on another podcast around just how do you scale up engineering orgs. I love the craft of that. I love making happy teams. I love how humans work, and I've studied child psychology, and marital psychology comes in really, real handy when managing engineers. And now I joke that what I don't want from AI is I finally figured out humans, and now I'm going to have to manage AI at some point. Crap, they have all different motivations, right? Humans want parties and money and stuff like that, and the AI wants some more CPU cycles. I'm going to have to figure that one out too.
So AI is just going to kind of is AI going to be able to jump into other computers and become like this essence where it like takes it like kind of sprinkles some fairy dust into another computer, and then the two computers are working as one, and then the four computers are working as one, and all of a sudden all of our computers are working as one? Or is that just wacky out there kind of stuff?
One of the things Sam Altman mentioned recently that I thought was interesting is one of the reasons he wants to race ahead on AI is if we can get to a point where, they say a person is in the box, they want to do that in a contained box. Study it, understand it. And so one of the things that's a motivator for not going slower into AI, but actually going faster, is to get to that point so we can understand it better. Because, I don't know, if it gets out, we're going to have there's a lot of great sci-fi around it getting out. And causing mayhem. And by mayhem, I mean not what we want, but what it wants.
Yeah, let's hit that real quick. I mean, what's the what could go wrong?
Well, so this is where the alignment problem comes in. I defer to Noah on describing that because he does a much better job.
Noah, the algorithm genius. What could go wrong with AI, brother? Let us know.
Well, basically, what could go wrong is what is going wrong. So it's pretty trivial for the AI to create BS and other noise that's plausible enough to waste our time and attention. Um, and so, as it becomes cheaper and cheaper to produce that, and you can act in the expectation that that is happening more and more confidently, we can see our political and cultural and economic institutions becoming less and less valuable for the
Noah,
benefit.
you're such a not a downer, but damn it, Noah. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just
For the
kidding. This
benefit
was the question to see like where could it
of
go.
the people who are injecting precisely that BS into the system.
Yeah.
And so
There has to be an overseer for that, I think. Maybe.
well, the issue is, as you pointed out, the power implicit in that position is beyond anything that we have any precedent for human activity. So what we actually need are public mechanisms of engaging in cultural and financial and political action
Maybe
that are
automated,
so robust that
autonomous.
we can effectively clear the air and increase signal and not increase noise.
So yeah, wow. My mind's always blown hanging out with you, Noah. Marty, you're the man. I want to hang out with you more too. What can we tell people about? Well, how can we sell the podcast? How would you sell it to someone that's just hearing about this right now?
I think anybody who's interested in the topic of AI, we're trying to explore everything we can around it. You were asking a little bit about what do we hope to accomplish, and I think part of the first thing we hope to accomplish is just exploring it all and then figuring out where it goes from there. For instance, the last one we did, it hasn't shipped yet, but we're trying to explore, there's certain things about humans and biological beings that have always been true. And so we were trying to quantify those. So we start with things like need for water, need for shelter, that kind of thing. And the reason we do this is to try to explore, well, if the AI iterates way faster and we're suddenly 100 years down the road or 1,000 years down the road in AI time, what might be the same? Acquisition of resources might be the same if it's trained on us. If it's like a sort of that biblical notion of made in God's image. If the AI is made in our image, what will be the same in 1,000 years?
Yeah, is AI the creator? Is AI the big G?
Yeah, yep. And then also exploring a little bit about your question about what comes next. And I'll give you an example of one that I've been thinking about. Is there's been a focus on what's good, what's bad, but I think that there's a big other part of things we can't even comprehend. And the thought experiment I've been playing with, I saw this example, and it's really bizarre to me. Just me being in this time and space, is someone said that they lost their father. Someone trained up an AI model to with all their father's, I guess, writings and all that, and it felt so much like their father. They were able to say goodbye, and I get this like, that feels wrong. That feels very weird.
Why?
Because I don't know. I guess I'm saying that, well, that's not my dad. That is an AI model. But now you get into the spot where, well, what if it's so well trained I can't differentiate dad from a computer? And are you familiar with the Turing test, which basically says
no, but I don't know if I want to know, man.
Okay, well, it goes back to Alan Turing, and it basically said a program will pass the Turing test if and when a human cannot differentiate talking to a human or the AI. So, you start chatting in the box, and if you can't differentiate it, this program passes the Turing test. But I've been pondering this idea of what I call like a specialized Turing test. And the idea is, well, what if you cannot differentiate a loved one that you know deeply from an AI model? Where are we?
That's a psychotic breakdown, I believe.
Yeah, that's
we
weird.
could look that up, but that's crazy.
It feels very uncomfortable to me and bizarre, but maybe that's one of the bizarre realities that we might end up with is, does nobody die because I've got an AI model of them?
Do we become 150, 200 years old with new genetic sequencing?
Or also medical, yeah.
In the huge medical And just having all of that medical information together accurately at one area, especially because it's so hard to see a doctor anyway. But I always think, like, why don't we just get one big scan every year? It's like, am I going to get cancer in 5 years here? Is it susceptible here? Like, just do the big one. Just look at everything.
But again, the problem is, what if you knew? It may not actually become a problem. And that's what we're seeing with AI. It may be able to say you might have cancer in 4 years, or it might even be able to say, I'm seeing cancer that may become something. But
well, at least you can jump in and try to prevent that, right?
Yeah, well, but we're already seeing examples where people do jump in and it actually may have not turned into cancer. So now you do, very difficult
preventative for no reason, almost.
Yeah, and that preventative can be damaging on its own.
Oh God, that's a good point,
the
Marty.
The stress of awareness in the aftermath of 3 Mile Island, the amount of radiation that was released was not enough to cause any.
Everyone's dying, Noah. No, I'm just kidding.
However, there was an increase in cancer around the 3 Mile Island plant in the aftermath.
Now, hold on, just to check in. 3 Mile Island is.
3 Mile Island is a nuclear facility in the United States that had a loss of coolant accident, i.e. the water boiled out of the primary coolant loop, and some radiation was released as a result of that into atmosphere.
Whoa, okay.
And I'll add, here's as Noah is saying, the real bad part was they had an engineer get out there and talk to the press, and you never put an engineer out in front of the press. And so they stressed out everybody.
It turned out that, best we can tell, the stress of hearing about the radiation leak was so great that over the course of the next generation, roughly 32 people, I believe, got cancer that otherwise wouldn't have they weren't aware that there was basically, as it turned out, trivial level of danger. It could have been worse, but it wasn't.
It raises fear, too. It makes you think better, that way.
Also wasn't. Another point when you're talking about the big scan, since these AIs that we have trained up can actually extract radically more information from scans than we can, including scans that have been deliberately blurred to try to keep information from coming through them. The simple fact is that
deliberately blurred? Who's deliberately blurring these scans, man? What do you mean?
So, have you ever seen like an anonymous person on a news show where they pixelate their face so you can see who it is?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so there was a study that was done to determine whether or not an AI could look at people's chest X-rays and figure out what race they were. And the trick is
interesting
that humans, without fairly extensive examination and measurement, can't actually do this. So it turns out that the AIs could do it very easily. So then they use that pixelation process in order to turn the scans into essentially blurred out messes, which for the human beings, you've seen what those look like from faces. They're not distinguishable in any way. The AIs could still distinguish with essentially perfect accuracy the races of the individuals in the blurred scans.
That's a wacky thing.
So the thing is, the power that we use in ultrasound or in MRI or in X-ray is to get fine detail. And
very expensive, very scientific, very serious tests, by the way.
Also invasive. Getting a chest X-ray every day would actually be dangerous from the amount of radiation you would absorb.
I would think so.
They're getting better at that. However, if we have significantly better diagnostic tools that can extract real information from very low-res scans, then we could lower the power of those scans, which means that you could actually expose yourself to them more frequently. So one model that I've imagined would be a background scan. So imagine a basically lead-lined room that has virtually no background radiation with a fixed and known radiation source in it. So you can go into this room and you don't change your level of radioactivity that you're receiving at all. You get a small dose just from wandering around outside or sitting in your living room.
I don't mean to laugh, but that's yikes.
What if it was possible to extract information from a scan at that level that was medically useful, because the machine, in spite of getting what to a human being would be a blurred out mess of nothing, it would still have enough information for the
At that level, at a different
superior
level.
AI. So
Yeah,
at that
sure.
point, it's not the one big scan once a year. This could be a daily practice, in fact, because the scan effectively isn't changing your radiation diet in any way.
So
and
it's
so
yeah, so it's less threatening. It's going to keep your body a little healthier, you know?
So yeah, in that case, we could effectively eliminate the entire process of existing sort of diagnostics and doctor visits for everything that would be coverable under this degree of scan.
I mean,
which-
Noah, do you think we would have like all remote kind of doctor's visits at that point?
Well,
Like, would we even have to go see the doctor, or would the doctor just be Oz?
another fun concept from science fiction that shows up in space science fiction a lot is the fresher, the what bathrooms look like in spaceships, and they're generally
Okay.
recreation / hospital / bathrooms.
Huh.
The modern bathroom is only about a century old, and you can go to
That's a good
uh,
point.
Hearst Castle, where you can see the bathrooms that essentially popularized indoor plumbing in the United States. And they look basically identical to, say, my bathroom. So couldn't we develop sophisticated AI-enabled bathrooms that would
Warm the
look-
seat.
well, take a look at your excrement before flushing it into the sewage system, and
And like testing it and running labs on it.
maybe other kinds of labs that would be worthwhile in those instances. Maybe
You'd know
checking-
what's in people's water. You'd know what kind of
Right.
disease is coming in and out and all over the place, literally in
Maybe-
and out.
Yeah, maybe checking the shower water. Dogs
Yeah.
can be trained to determine whether or not people have cancer just by smelling them.
I've heard that. That's wild.
Not every form of cancer so far, and certainly not every dog, but if human beings shed information that's chemically sensitive in the air, and in fact studies exist that there's enough air shedding to do genetic identification, then
Wow.
comboing that technology with the internal air quality and water quality checks of an advanced bathroom could also track the health and diagnostic levels of an entire family.
Well, it's always good to take AI, the most genius thing going on, and end it with bathrooms. But I think that kind of brings it all the way around for sure. We've seen and talked about what could be good, what's going to be detrimental, what kind of could be in the middle. Yo, I just want to say thank you guys so much for joining me. I think we've squeezed out as much AI squeeze lemonade as we possibly can on this. But yo, maybe in 3 to 6 months you guys come back on for part deuce. What do you think?
Thank you for having us on. Yeah.
Yo, it was my pleasure. Marty, former CTO of Reddit. Dude's a genius, legendary genius. He did Pinterest, and now he's doing AI Revolution podcast. Noah Healey, we know him from the past. We know him from it's Core Disk, right, Noah?
Core Disk, yes.
Core Disk. He's an algorithm developer. Thank you guys so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
For sure, for sure. All right, that was pretty informative and entertaining, right? And that's what we try to do. It's blind knowledge, blind as in David, knowledge.com. My name's Joey B. What do you think of the show? What do you think of the show? Should we get some popcorn? I don't know. Hit us up. info@blindknowledge.com. Check out blindknowledge.com if you are a content creator, if you are a business trying to advertise, if you have a thought, maybe you didn't like it, maybe you did like it, maybe you want to hear more of what we're doing. Any feedback is good feedback. BLIND knowledge.com. Marty just showed up there. AI is taking over, man. Yo, I'm out of here. Everyone have a blessed day. And hey, tell someone you love them today. All right, we out.